welcome to We the Thunder, the regular season finale. It's lunchtime. This is the earliest we've ever had We the Thunder, if you don't count, us winning the Stanley Cup after midnight and, streaming till 3, 4 a.m. Let's get back to those days because we're heading to the NHL playoffs, and we wanted to have a quick breakdown before those games start. So my co-host, Thomas Schooley, Viva Las Vegas, Viva! Maybe he's still stuck in Las Vegas because he is not present. Again, we're not used to doing this show early. So Thomas is going to join us on the fly. Don't worry. We've got his replacement, at least for about 20 minutes here. We've got Evan Closky back on the show from Tampa Bay 10. That's right. You can see him on your TVs. You can see him on social media. And he was last on this show, I want to say, right at the end of January. So welcome back. I'll give you a little thunder clap.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was different times when I was last here. So,
yeah.
We could talk about some more optimistic things. They're in the playoffs. Life is good right now.
Well, when you were on, we really weren't sure if the Lightning were going to make the playoffs this season. Bassey was not himself yet. He had just come back from injury for that first 2 months. He wasn't himself. Sergachev was still on his first injury of the season. So his season's been a wash with all the injuries. The team actually had a promising January, but was about to take time off for the All-Star game and went completely cold. But here we are in April, and the Lightning are one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs. What the heck happened?
They got their stuff together. That's what happened. Ultimately, I think their backs were up against the wall. They had that game against Calgary at home that they played awful in. And I think they needed to get punched in the face like that, embarrassed like that, to eventually start doing the things that they needed to do. But the easiest answer is the trade deadline came and gone. They shipped nobody out, and they brought in two pieces. Anthony Duclair, Matt Dumba. Matt Dumba fulfills a huge role on the blue line. Let's forget about what he provides from a skill set, but he plays north of 20-some-odd minutes. When Sergachev went down, it's one thing to lose the talent, but he played a lot of minutes. Those are a lot of minutes you have to cover, so Dumba gets to do that. And the most important sneaky ad that really helped this group recalibrate was bringing in Duclair, because not only did Duclair fit in seamlessly with guys like Point and Cooch in that top line, which, I think it is a skill set to be able to play with superstars like that. It's not an easy thing to do. Brandon Hagel was excellent at it. But when you were able to bring in Duclair, that solidified your first line, then you were able to put Cirelli, Hagel, Stamkos together, which solidified your second line. They were missing that piece that really correctly sorted everybody where they needed to be. So, again, even beyond what Duclair has done from a productive standpoint, which is very obvious by looking at the box score, he's been amazing. He has allowed the lines to really even itself out, where I think for most of the season, it just wasn't. They didn't quite have the right combo of people. And, bringing in Duclair, it also bumped Sherry out of the lineup. And now Sherry showed some nice things coming in spot duty at the end of the season, but, it wasn't really working out. So they fulfilled a need and kind of bolstered its depth and its bottom six along the way by making that one move. And I think even Julien Brisebois would admit, maybe not to media members, but maybe to himself, that he didn't really imagine that Duclair would fit as well as he did into the role that he's doing. But I think the backs up against the wall, plus getting through the trade deadline and the organization showing, hey, we still believe in you, and we're going to provide you a couple more pieces to help. I think those two factors really allowed the group to settle in, and defensively they did get better along the way.
Yeah, I think that depth pickup on both sides, but especially on defense, has helped a lot. We're not rolling into the playoffs with two rookies playing on that third line defense, so that's going to be huge moving forward for these playoffs. And I got to give you a little bit of credit, because when we were speculating about, hey, what's JB going to do? Is he going to do anything? You said, yeah, you think he's going to make the moves. He's going to find a move or two to bring some players in here. And even what you said something about like player profiles, about, getting these tough guys in there, getting these guys that aren't afraid to hit. And these two guys fit both those profiles. The other thing you mentioned back in January was the schedule got significantly easier for the Lightning. And we definitely saw that in March when this team just took off. So I don't know if you got a crystal ball over there, but some of your kind of predictions have come true.
Well, let's focus on the ones I get right, not the ones I get wrong.
We're not mentioning those other ones. No, you were pretty spot on. By the way, if you're out there in the chat, hey, Kim. Oh, we got Jay Retcher in the chat.
Oh, Jay.
Backwards hats all day for the playoffs, Jay. Come on. We don't have fancy shoes like you. If you're out there in the chat, let us know what you're having for lunch. I'm still actually drinking my monkey cold coffee from this morning, so it's just afternoon here. So let us know what you're having for lunch, and hopefully you guys are joining us. And hey, tell a friend, hit that like button. Tom Schooley will be here shortly. And just a reminder for the new folks this season, we go live after every playoff game, which is why we really wanted to have an episode before the playoff starts, which is Sunday afternoon, meaning we will be live Sunday afternoon, right after games, right after, I should say, the Lightning play the Panthers in Sunrise. So look who shows up. Thomas Gore, are you still in Vegas? All right.
Well, Starbucks action or Panera? We got Panera.
Panera. I just had inspection at my store, so I was trying to pull the inspection out, and I was like, "Are we done? I gotta go."
It's funny because I was telling Evan, I was like, "Yeah, I'm scrambling. I'm super busy with work. Just got back last night, so don't worry. We're not going to be going too long here today, but we've got a couple things to do. We still want to talk about this matchup with the Panthers. Want to look a little bit into some of these other matchups in the playoffs, and we got to go over our predictions from the beginning of the season, of course. So, all right. So, Florida Panthers. This is, I believe it's the third time we will meet them in the playoffs. We are 2-0 against them, but this is a team that has grown significantly. They've seen the President's Cup or trophy curse bite them 2 years ago. They came back strong last year, upsetting Boston with that President's Trophy curse, and making it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. And back in, I think, February, March, like, they were my pick to definitely win the Stanley Cup before the Lightning went on their little run here. I definitely thought the Panthers were in prime position. Now they've cooled off towards the end of the season. Maybe the effect that we've seen from the Lightning the last couple of years, where, hey, we're kind of in it. We just need to, win some games and, keep the momentum going. And then, it's go time in the playoffs. What do you guys think of this matchup? Who does it favor? What are the pros for the Lightning? What are we worried about? We'll start with you first, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, the Panthers are going to be favorites, as they should, given what they've done throughout the season. It's been where the Lightning have kind of been a roller coaster at points, some highs, some lows, ultimately ending on a high. The Panthers season really is chalked up to this unbelievable run of, like, they're the best team in the world, and then really coming down from that high before they went on this 4-game winning streak to really end the season. I think they won 3 of 12 games. So A lot of that was mostly due to a lack of scoring than really getting like blown out of the building. I think their power play right now is not working well. And if I remember the last time they played the Panthers in the playoffs, their power play was also stinking it up. And so that was a narrative that might play back into this series. Their speed is concerning. I think that's why adding a piece like Anthony Duclair is so important. I mean, Duclair point on that first line and having that speed mitigates what they're going to do. I think their defense certainly is better. The Bolts have improved, but that's a weak spot. You can't replace Sergachev. They got Dumba, but I think that really. Look, last year the Panthers made their run as sort of this underdog story, playing the Bruins, a la the Lightning in 2019. The Bruins were the team to beat, best team ever, and they're going to go all the way, and went 7 games with them and really built a lot of confidence. They built a lot of confidence at the end of that season. They were a squad that was underperforming for most of the year and got it right at the right time. Now I'm interested to see how they do with all that experience and winning the Atlantic and feeling like they should be favorites, right? It's just a different role. And viewing the Lightning, it's going to be interesting to see this group be as a little bit of an underdog, let's just say by probabilities, metrics standpoint, not with what we all think, which is, I ain't doubting a team that has the pedigree and the playoff experience that the Lightning have had over the past handful of years. But Lightning are going to go in there free and breezy. And they know the Panthers really well. They have a successful history against them. You mentioned it. 8-2 all time against the Panthers in the playoffs. So they have their number. And it's not like this is the first time that the Panthers have won a season series and then the playoffs come and the Bolts take care of business, because I believe that's happened the past couple of times they played. I would say that, the number one thing that sticks out to me with the Panthers is speed, their depth. And the number one thing that sticks out to me about the Lightning is, they have the best player in the world on their team, which if I do remember, Kucherov has quite the career against the Panthers in the playoffs. I have to double check those numbers. I'll go through my postseason prep here soon.
Killed them in 2020.
But if I remember, I mean, we're talking like north of a point per game. It's
that's average.
It's a staggering number. I got to go back. I don't want to say a number and then be completely wrong.
Well, remember 2021?
Eviscerated them in the past.
Yeah, he crushed them in 2021 when we swept them. And actually, I was kind of worried about them that year, as they've kind of been getting better and better, and now they're even better. This is the best team that they've had. They're way better than the 2021 team.
Well, remember the trade deadline picked up. They got Tarasenko, they got Akaposo from Buffalo. So those were their big pickups at trade deadline. We got declared Dumba. I really thought Dumba's been slacking, but last night he showed some improvement. I thought in the game last night, getting an assist on that declare goal last night. But they're definitely a beatable team. But remember who their goalie is, Bobrovsky, who's the one that swept us from Columbus. So we're going to hear that several times coming into this series, how Bobrovsky has. But since then, the Lightning have owned him. So it's going to be a great matchup. I wanted them to see Boston, but I think this is going to test them a lot. And they get through this first round, and I think it's pretty much smooth sailing to the finals. Unless you get the Rangers there.
I was going to say, I mean, we can mention Bobrovsky in 2019, but we can also mention Vasilevsky in 2022. Mm-hmm. Maybe one of the best performances Andre Vasilevsky has ever had in a playoff series was the 4-game sweep of the Panthers. I remember John Cooper walking off the ice and just being like, our goalie, what are you supposed to do? He's on one. He's amazing. So I just distinctly remember that sweep against Florida and thinking like Andre Vasilevsky is a man possessed. That there was not like whatever that game 4 was inside Amalie Arena. I just remember the Lightning didn't play that well, and Vasi was just on another level. So
and that's when those players were heard to be going to the strip joint. So
yeah.
we need Tampa to be on point on the strippers this series and get their best.
Load up on Dale Mabry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you guys in agreement that out of the potential first round matchups, this was probably the one we wanted the least? Like we'd rather see Boston in this first round, right?
Probably. I probably would have said Boston. In the end, like who cares, right? I mean, that's the number one thing that I think I've learned from the players from the moment like I stepped into this market was them just being like, the playoffs are different. Like regular season points, performances, whatever you have done, it don't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. This is a new season. The physicality ramps up. The way that it's officiated is different. It just like for whatever perception we have of what Boston would have been for the Lightning versus the Panthers. And yeah, I think that I would have preferred Boston over Florida. In the end, you probably have to go through Boston or Toronto anyway in the second round. Vice versa, you would have had to probably go through Florida in the Florida or Toronto in the second round. So it's just like you're gonna face these combo of teams first, second round, whatever. Stamkos said it the other day, to be the best, you got to beat the best. We've heard that a million times in sports, but they really, I think in 2019, they learned it does not matter what we do through 82 games, right? Get to the playoffs, line up whoever you have in front of us, and let's go to work. So I trust John Cooper, this coaching staff, Vasi, when it's playoff time and the backs are up against the wall, that when they're focusing on one opponent and they can just sink their teeth into one opponent, 1 and 2, usually they're feeling each other out. But typically as the series goes on, the Bolts kind of figure them out better than vice versa. And, if people want to harken back to last year's Maple Leaf series, I'll just say, like, I think the numbers show it too. The Bolts were probably the better team against the Maple Leafs last year. Couldn't win in overtime. That's a problem. I can't say that I'm not going to be worried the first time that the Panthers and Bolts go to OT going, like, does this team have the legs to go to go deep into these OTs and pull out those coin flip games? But the one thing I do expect from them is to not give up a 4-1 lead in the third period at home.
Well, we've seen when they're successful in the playoffs, it's because they get physical. They turn. We saw that against Boston. We saw that a couple of games, probably a week or two ago, and they took over those games. They won those games, and that's how they succeed in the playoffs. If Florida always gets physical, so it's going to be interesting. Stephanie put this out here. Lightning had the best power play, 5th best PK. Panthers 8th best, 6th best PK, and then Kim basically answered it right here. Officiating is different, and they tend to swallow their whistles a little bit more.
It shouldn't be. I agree with you, by the way, but it is what it is, right? We got to live with it.
So it is officiated a little bit differently. They tend to swallow the whistles, and then sometimes they do the ticky-tack. So we're going to have to see how these officials start calling against us. But if it is a penalty-driven series, which it tends to be with the Panthers, that's going to factor in.
I think we could be in trouble if it is with the recent injuries. We basically are down 1 PK line.
Well, we'll see.
With Glendening and Mott. We'll see if they can come back. Both those injuries to me in the last couple of weeks looked bad. They didn't look good, but we're at that point of the season where Coop's not going to give a hint at all to the severity of these.
Well, there's obviously
play if they can.
there's obviously someone else injured too, because he said we would know at game time last night. He wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to dress a full 20 men last night. So
Yeah,
his
I think
comments yesterday was, we hope to have one ready by game time, which means that there someone else is nicked up in there.
well,
Well, it was Hedman.
Hedman being sick was not ideal.
Right.
So Hedman was sick. He'll be fine. Sorelli was management. He'll be fine. And Mott and Glendening are the two big question marks, with Fleury being in there. But even a healthy Fleury, I imagine, he's 6 or 7. Like Calvin DeHaan, 6 or 7, right? Like I expect DeHaan not to play in the playoffs if they don't need him out there. But it really comes down to Mott and Glendening. You would hope the fact that Mott was labeled day-to-day helps. Certainly don't love taking a puck off your foot where he did. Typically, that's bad news.
But it's not broken, is what that means.
But hopefully, by him saying day-to-day, it's just a gnarly bruise, and they're just going to let it rest for a week, right? And he'll be good to go. And then with Glendening, the hope would be maybe he dislocated it. They popped it back in, and it's sore, and he'll be fine, right? I mean, we're trying to read into best case scenarios, but
Yeah.
we'll practice tomorrow, and we'll know a little bit more, And by I say a little bit more, if Mott and Glendening are on the ice, that's a good sign. If they're not, then we're going to be left guessing on Sunday, just like the Panthers will be. But yeah, I mean, are they the biggest blows to the lineup? Not necessarily, but you mentioned the PK will be, Mott is a grinder in the bottom 6, man. I love his engine. I hope he's back next season. I think he provides a lot of spunk and a lot of tenacious activity on the PK. But where Glendening fits in, they brought in Glendening to win faceoffs, right? That was one of the key things that JBB did in the offseason was like, we got to win more faceoffs. And when you're on the PK and you're taking those defensive zone faceoffs, winning those and clearing the puck, that's big time. So if Glendening's out, the face-off percentages might not be as fortuitous or as beneficial as we have seen for the Lightning throughout the season, because that has improved from what we saw last year. And one can argue losing face-offs, something as simple as that, was a big reason why they lost that Maple Leaf series.
And Evan, we talked about this last week. Mott has been like the surprise of the team, because going into the season, it was Archibald.
Yeah.
And right before training camp, he says that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play anymore. And the same day they announced that, then within 3 hours, they announced we've signed Tyler Mott. So going into the season, you didn't even realize we were going to have Tyler Mott. So I think that's really the surprise of the season that we got. But we saw last night, Paul was so good at those faceoffs. Tavares had a horrible night at the faceoff circle against Paul last night. And so if it's going to lean on Paul for those faceoffs, I'm a little bit more confident after last night against Tavares, because Tavares is one of the best in the game.
And I'll say, I said this on our Bolts Breakaway show, the first episode we had, I think it was like after that Calgary loss. So I'm talking beginning of March. But I said the X factor for this team, we can talk about Kucherov and Stamkos and Point and all those guys. They're the stars. They need to step up. No doubt about it. Nick Paul is the X factor for this team in the playoffs. I mean, the depth scoring he has provided this year, career year across the board, the face-offs, the PK, the PP. I mean, he really is a glue guy for this team, just like Sorelli and Hagel are. Paul is, to me, the guy to watch. So you bringing him up, him improving in the face-offs, I just want to give him some love, because he really has had a phenomenal year. And if he can kind of be this unsung hero in the playoffs a little bit, obviously they needed him in Game 7 in Toronto a couple of years ago. But if he can be that guy that can step up a couple of times in a series, that could be the tipping point that makes the Bolts the team to beat.
And Paul, the King Clancy nomination for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which shows they have a lot of respect for him because that's for what he does on the ice and off the ice and for the community. So obviously he's really liked in the organization to have that nomination for the team.
And he's liked by the media because this man, he takes a lot of questions. I give him a lot of respect because we do ask a lot of him after games, before games. He must lead the team in press conferences, like right next to Stamkos. So, I give him that credit as well.
And here, David saying Jeannot scored last night. I was impressed with Jeannot getting that score. I think that was a monkey off his back. And
I hope so.
And not fighting Reeves at all. So
no need to do that in a game like yesterday.
Someone I was out back.
Reeves and Jeannot scored.
Yeah, I was out back last night for yesterday morning for a morning skate, and someone, when Reeves came by, he said, "You gonna fight with Gino tonight?" And he's like, "We'll see." So it was good not to see them two get into it last night when there was no need. Game 82. I mean, they were both solidified where they're going to be. So,
and I know that Jeannot has not been the guy that many Bolts fans have wished to have seen when they traded for him. A lot of that has to do with injuries. Mm-hmm. Even last year before the playoffs, he got hurt. He was hurt for most of this year. But the key is with Jeannot, it's the same thing that this always kind of ticks me off about Cirelli, and people stop complaining about Cirelli because he kind of went on a heater and scored a bunch of goals. Cirelli's job on this team is not to score goals. And I understand when you go through like stretches where the offense maybe isn't performing as well, or Cooch points, Stamkos aren't finding the back of the net, that you're like, what's Cirelli doing? Like, he's doing everything that you don't see on a box score, right? He's forechecking, he's playing PK, he's matching up with the other team's best line and playing amazing two-way play. Jeannot doesn't need to be the driver of action on this team. He has to be physical. He's got to be a strong forechecker and hopefully keep the puck in the offensive zone, trying to flip the ice over to the next line that eventually does all the work. So
Eric Erelson calls it the Jeannot effect, and you'll see it that when he is on the ice, people don't want to fight, don't want to run at our guys because they know Jeannot's going to come after them. So we've had E on here a couple times, and he talks about how the fans really, but he hasn't had a fair shot because he hasn't had a healthy season. And then on top of it, he is here. He is doing what they got him here for, which was the physicalness. So when he has been in the game, he is making a difference by being out there on the ice. That there's several times you can see the people take a look and see, oh, it's Jeannot. Never mind. I'm not going to do that extra hit. I'm not going to do that hit to the head because I know I'm going to have to pay against Jeannot.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to be mad if Jeannot starts, putting some biscuits in the basket for the playoffs either.
No.
Whatever you can get from your bottom really six, helps. Man, if those are bonuses.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I remember last year, right, in Toronto, game 1, and I think, what was it, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare scored the first goal. It's like, oh, this could be a good night. Like when that happens, it's
you have to have that to win the Stanley Cup, because what teams are really going to do, and I know they've been trying to do it all season, and he still got 144 points, but teams are going to be trying desperately to shut down Cooch in points. So if they're successful, if they can do it, we have to have the other line scoring. And that doesn't just mean, that second line with Stamkos and Duclair, or if they drop Hagel back. Are interchangeable lately. But we've got to get that third and fourth line scoring. And that's kind of what worries me, besides the PK, about these injuries, is to win a Stanley Cup, you got to have all four lines going. And that's the thing with the Panthers, in my opinion, is they're such a complete team with the physicality, the defense, the scoring. Like Sam Reinhart had the quietest, almost 60-goal season in NHL history. It's 57 goals. And they have a bunch of guys that can score on you. And now they've got a lot of playoff experience from the last couple years, especially last year, getting to the Stanley Cup Finals. They only have one thing left to do. So we need to play spoiler. And this is going to be a heck of a matchup. And the team that wins this series might go on to the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll see what happens. But it's a pretty cool series. I just love this Sunshine Showdown because I really think both teams have benefited from both teams being good. I think Florida has helped us in the past from being a better team and kind of making us tougher in these last playoff series against them. And I think we've helped them kind of get over the hump of as like, hey, that's the model to do it, and that's the team we've got to be able to beat to get over the hump. If the Panthers beat us in the first round, they're by far my favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And I think if they get over that hump, I don't think anyone's going to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, John Cooper pretty much said that yesterday before the game against Toronto, mentioning that they've kind of grown up together, and he's also said that 2021 playoff series still to this day is maybe the best series that he's been a part of, like the most competitive, and that was a really good team that the Bolts beat in that back-to-back year. Just with the way that the scheduling and how it worked out and how they squared off against each other, but geographically, it's great traveling, and there is something to be said about being familiar with the team. So while I hate the playoff structure, I hate that they do it like this. These first rounds do get chippy. You do know your opponent more because you played them a bunch. You've seen them a bunch. At this point, like Panthers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, the Bolts have a tremendous playoff history with all of them that you can draw back on. So these are the things that we look forward to in a series like this. And I mean, I would be hard pressed to imagine this series doesn't at least go 6.
Oh yeah.
So that's sort of where I'm kind of at. I'm sure there's going to be a game where the Bolts get blown out. I'm sure there's going to be a game where the Bolts blow them out. And then somewhere in the middle, where are you on the 50-50 games? Are you going to be the one that steps up when it's overtime? Like that, I mean, the smallest of margins will win this series. Who's going to come up in that 1 or 2 big moments to really drive your team over the edge? So assuming that we don't get a sweep or a 5-game series here, that it's going to come down to stuff we can't really predict. It's going to be 1 or 2 plays that will determine those games, and that will be that.
Yeah, one thing's for sure. It should be awesome. But if we've learned anything from watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, there's no predicting what's going to happen in these playoffs. Like last year alone just blew my mind with everything that happened.
I love these first round matchups, though. I think these are some of the best first round matchups. And you're seeing people saying that the Caps are going to get blown out by the Rangers. And I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I think, the Rangers take that series, but I think it's going to be a good series. I think the Toronto and Boston series is going to be good. The Florida Lightning series is going to be good. It's some good first rounds. Even that Carolina Islanders one.
I'll say this is the first year in a long time where I'm like, you know what? The West looks a little bit stronger than the East.
But they've said the West will win this year. Almost every single.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but at least when you look 1 through 8, genuinely any of those teams in the West can win the Western Conference. Like if you told me, hey, I believe the Predators, I'd be like, oh, I believe that. If you told me the Caps or the Islanders are going to win the Eastern Conference, I'm just not buying that.
No.
But they might, could they win a series? Sure, anything in the playoffs can happen. The Blue Jackets beat the Bolts in 2019. I would have never predicted that. But I think in the East, you're talking about 6 teams that can legitimately win the conference.
Definitely. Hey, we'll let you get back to it, Evan, but I do want to ask you a little bit about Nikita Kucherov. Like last night for a regular season finale game that didn't really mean anything, was a pretty cool game to see Austin Matthews getting shut down for 70. Although I wouldn't have been mad if he scored it at the end, just to see it happen. But I'm glad our guys did shut him down. And hey, kudos to my first star of the week. It's not Cooch this week. It's Tompkins, baby, coming in relief for 2 games and shutting down Austin Matthews, who had like 20 shots yesterday. Not quite that much, but great job by the team shutting them down. And then Kucherov, thank God by the end of that second period, he did hit that 100th assist, because my God, how many setups could he possibly have in that second period?
It was so funny watching them. You would see them count. Oh, I'm the second player that's touched it. I got to give it back to Cooch so he gets the assist. They didn't want to do a third pass so anybody else would get the assist. So literally, if Cooch passed it to someone and then they passed it to somebody, it had to go back to Cooch. So it resets the assist all over again. And so you knew every third time it was going back to Cooch, but they couldn't stop it. They knew it was coming. Toronto knew that it was coming.
Yeah, Cooch to me is the MVP. The Lightning would not be a playoff team without him. Like, first off, the number one knock on Cooch are the defensive metrics, which go talk to John Cooper about his back checking and what he can do if you watch him play, he's not a bad defender. It's just sometimes what ends up happening is they're very aggressive offensively with Cooch on the ice because he's such a playmaker. Sometimes Cooch is going to make a pass or two, doesn't work out, and you have an odd man rush the opposite way. Any Lightning fan knows, you got to live with some bad Cooch passes to get the 100 assists, right? Like, there are going to be some duds in there that are going to create opportunities the other way. But this team didn't have Vasi for 2 months. They barely had Mikhail Sergachev. They missed Tyler Mott for some time. They didn't have Tanner Jeannot. I mean, they've been beaten up all year, and what's been the constant has been this man carrying this squad at points and with points. So he's got 54 more points than Braden Point. I believe that's like the first time in the salary cap era that there has been this disparity between 1 and 2. So John Cooper, Steven Stamkos, they all admit it. Like, we would not be here without him. Like, that just, I'm not putting any of the team on blast. I'm saying what they're telling us. They believe they would not be a playoff team without Nikita Kucherov. And to see him have that moment, to see him smile, because we don't get to see it often from him. He's stoic. He's not someone that's going to light up the room in a press conference.
Unless he's drunk.
Get him anyway. But
if he's drunk, you'll light up a room.
That's why they got to win the cup, so we get the legendary press conferences. But to see his teammates show him so much love in that moment, Cooper show him that love. Like, to me, that's all you need to know about the respect that the team has for Nikita Kucherov. So
Sergachev coming down the tunnel.
Yeah, sir. Yeah,
and comes to the bench too. And there's a great video out there that I think Barstool sent out. I think it was Barstool, where it shows Sergachev coming from the tunnel and giving Cooch, and then Cooch turns around and sees the Sergachev, and they just have like a moment with each other, and then Sergey instantly puts it out on his Instagram.
Yeah.
Saying congrats to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know. Like, look, everyone wants to be like, to say that leaders are vocal leaders, and that's easy to see. Cooch absolutely leads this team. He's not the rah-rah guy, but he will coach his teammates. He will help them, and he certainly leads by example. So, again, Nathan McKinnon wins, certainly deserving. I just hope it's not because, well, it's his time or he deserves one. That's not how this crap works, okay? Like, who is the most valuable player of the 23-24 season, to me, that is Nikita Kucherov. And I won't be I won't be upset if McKinnon gets it, but I
Oh, I
certainly
will. I will.
I certainly will be a bit frustrated. Because
Yeah.
I believe that he's going to get screwed over for reasons that have nothing to do with on the ice.
Right. Yeah. And I'm hoping them being on national television last night, and if people were watching and just seeing how much he was still dominating, even though he was clearly a target for Toronto to stop. And just like I said, he could have 6 assists in that second period easily, the way he was setting up.
Yeah, I wanted him to get it on he had like the through the legs behind him pass to Point, who was wide open, and he missed it first. But Point and Cooch, by the way, Cooch has assisted on 33 of Point's goals. That's an amazing amount.
Yeah, I mean the numbers are there where it should be Cooch, but I do think that there's people that are biased against him for a couple different reasons, and I think the main one is I believe he's the first winger to hit 100 assists. The other guys that have hit 100, Gretzky, Lemieux, players we've heard of, only greatness. They've done it as centers. That's a big difference to be able to hit that number as a winger.
And Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I think he's beaten like the winger assist numbers by double digits too. I think like the previous high was like high 80s. I forget. But, people don't talk about this enough as well. It's arguably the greatest season from a winger ever. Jaromir Jagr had like a 149-point season back in the day, whatever that was. I'm sure some people might be able to point to a couple of others that stand out to them, but you can make a strong argument that Nikita Kucherov just put forth the best season from a winger in National Hockey League history. And to me, when you witness something that is so mind-blowing and to not recognize that as MVP, or to say, oh, you won the Art Ross, you take that, he takes this, that's baloney. Like, that's absolute rock. So, and not to mention, I believe McKinnon's played on the same line like the entire season. It's been Rantanen. He's played with Makar, Taves, which certainly helps his defensive metrics as well. Certainly plays with elite talent as does Nikita Kucherov, especially on the power play. But
if you compare the teams, Colorado 75% would still be in there if McKinnon wasn't on that team or if he was injured. There is no doubt the Lightning would not be in the playoffs if there was no Kucherov this season.
Yeah, to me, it's as simple as that. Like, would the Avalanche be as good? Absolutely not. Would they still be a playoff team? I would say almost certainly. If we're going to talk about most valuable players, like, to me, honestly, as far as like value to the team, and not to say that McKinnon isn't valuable to the team, he's very valuable to the team, but it probably does go like Kucherov, McDavid, 1 and 2, as far as like you remove them from the equation. This is a totally different group. So, look, anybody can bend this argument to fit their narrative. If you're an Avalanche fan, an Oiler fan, I wish that we could talk more about Panarin. Panarin's had a hell of a season for the Rangers.
Yeah.
Amazing. Also, arguably, remove Panarin from the Rangers. I don't know what that team looks like. So I would love to get into that.
That was the reason he went to the Rangers, was to get that big name, the big spotlight, because he definitely wasn't getting it in Columbus. And he had several people. He even got the offer from the Florida Panthers back when he originally signed with the Rangers. And it was believed that Cooch was trying to get him here in Tampa. But he wanted that bright lights and that big money that the Rangers offered him.
Yeah.
It's been one of the more exciting NHL seasons we've seen. It's been so much fun to watch. And, as I said, it's just sad that like Panarin's not even talked about for MVP. Not saying that he should be out of the group that they have. Matthews scoring 69 goals this year. It's just, and he's a great two-way player. So it's insane, the talent we watched, the elite top tier talent we watched. And but to me, I find it funny when people use Kucherov's stature or the way that he plays as a negative. To me, that's like the biggest compliment you can give is this guy is like classical music on ice. It's insane.
Yeah, well, it's like what Jason put in the comments earlier, and I've said it several times this season. Like, Cooch just makes it look too easy. Like, it just looks natural to him to be this elite player. And maybe he wins MVP, maybe he doesn't. But I hope Lightning fans just kind of take a deep breath and realize how lucky we are just to witness this season. Like, it might be a long time before
it might never be broken. Like,
we might never see a Lightning player hit 100
certainly
points.
100 assists, by the way, unless it's from Kucherov again. But I was talking to a coworker about this. Sometimes like you have a Stamkos, that's a player that comes once in a generation. You have a Hedman, that's a player that comes once in a generation. You have a Kucherov, that's a player that comes once in a generation. Even Point, he's proving that maybe he's kind of that once in a generation type talent, and Vasilevsky, and they're all in the same generation. The carousel is going to stop 5 years from now, whenever it might be, and we're going to look back and be searching for those stars, and you're going to be telling your kids or your grandkids, yeah, I got to witness all of these guys on the ice together. It was insane. You don't even know what you were watching. That's, you gotta appreciate what they are giving us in live time. And just like we kind of said after the back-to-back, two-back trips to the Stanley Cup final, this is not the norm. This is as good as it gets. And franchises, there are peaks and there are valleys, and we're still kind of living in that golden age. But with talent that has gone away, you understand that each year matters that much more because these guys aren't getting any younger, but they're still extremely talented. And Stamkos.
Do you guys call this team a dynasty?
Well, yeah. When we look back on it, yes. And you got to also
say, even if it ended today and we still only had those 2 championships, I still think it's still a dynasty. Finals 4 times, playoffs, 7 times.
Killorn, I remember Killorn in Colorado was like, I'm not going to call ourselves a dynasty unless we win this cup and unless we win 3 in a row. Then we can call ourselves a dynasty. Let it be known, if the Bolts, let's say they win the cup this year, the way that people are talking about the Chiefs, the way that you talk about the Patriots, same way you got to talk about the Lightning, because they would win 3 and 4. They win 3
and 5.
3 and 5, but 4 and 5 in the final itself. So, those are kind of. And even start back to to me, it's 2015. The way you're going to look at the Lightning when we take a bird's eye view, it's going to be 2015 to 2025. I think is what we're going to look at them at. From Stanley Cup final appearances to Eastern Conference final appearances to President's Trophy in 2019 to 2 cups. For a 10-year stretch to
I think if you have a team
4 times. I go to the Eastern, at least go to the Eastern Conference final. What is it going to be 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10? I'd have to go through the numbers again in my head.
Ridiculous.
They didn't make
It's dominance.
It just.
I think if you have a team that's almost full of almost guaranteed Hall of Famers, then that makes your team a dynasty.
I'm gonna have to get a residence in Toronto for the amount of ceremonies I'm gonna have to do up there when all these guys keep going in. But people want to view dynasties as championships, but when you get like 10 years removed from it, you kind of like drink it in a little bit more, and you're like, nah, they were a dynasty. And that's the Lightning are a dynasty, and it starts year one, not interim, year one of John Cooper, and I think it will be sort of like his era and that kind of dynasty. So fun debates for us to have for a long time.
So I've got a silly stat for you, and then one question before we get you out of here. We'll put you on the spot here. Silly stat. No disrespect to Mr. Kucherov, but when I saw this last night, it was just jaw-dropping, and I know this is a different era of hockey. 5 players have hit 100 assists. Gretzky only did it 11 times in a row. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, that was years and years ago, but I thought that was unbelievable.
He has some records that are just never going to be sniffed.
Well, there's one that might be next year. We'll see if the grade A.
By the way, let me tell you this: anybody who throws dirt on Nikita Kucherov's empty net points this year, I do not. They better bring that same energy to Ovechkin when he breaks Gretzky's record. So all I'm saying is don't ooh and ah over Ovi breaking the goal record, and then poo Kucherov getting like 14 empty net points this year. Like, that's not how this works. You're going to have to be consistent. So if you are anti the empty net points, then I guess you're just not for Ovi breaking Gretzky's record. And I want to see that editorial come out next year. So
it's going to happen. And if you're really that much of a Gretzky lover, it's going to be a long time till someone breaks that assists record because he's way ahead of everyone else.
Somebody put in there, Kucherov does have more empty net points than McKinnon. Yeah, Kucherov leads the league in empty net points. So that is, that is, it is what it is. I don't think it's a negative. I think there was an article on ESPN yesterday that came out, like, it's viewed as a positive, right? Like, Cooper puts him there to close. He's a closer. So that's what empty net points are. When you get them, you win the game, right?
Coffee's for closers, baby.
That's right.
Hey, all right. So last question. It's kind of a loaded one. You can just give me a yes or no if you want to. Number 91, Steven Stamkos. Is he in a Bolt sweater next season?
Yes.
All right.
I believe that will happen. At what number, how many years, I don't know. But I believe Steven Stamkos will be back with the Lightning next season. I do believe he will be a Bolt for life.
Hope so.
Unless he, I don't know, age 42 or something, he gets on like some team and like you never remember him playing 42 games for the squad. But ultimately, he'll be a Bolt.
He's earned it. All right, Evan, appreciate you coming on. Let people know where they can follow you for this playoff run. If they don't follow you, definitely one of my favorite X accounts out there.
Yeah, you can follow me on the Twitter /X at Closky WTSP. Also, we have our final recording of the Bolts Breakaway. If you haven't seen it, you can see the shows on our 10 Tampa Bay YouTube page. But we do about a 10 to 12 minute long form show about the week that was for Bolts hockey. We got our final episode, which will be a playoff preview, coming up Saturday at 7:30 and 10:30 in the morning on 10 Tampa Bay. It will also be available on YouTube, so you can watch it there. And also you can check out our website at 10tampabay.com. The playoffs are starting. Everything is going to be crazy. We'll be living every other day. We'll be going to a hockey game essentially at this point. And with the first series in Sunrise, we'll certainly be there for a game 5 and 7 if necessary. Hopeful to be there for game 1. The only game we might miss is game 2 in Sunrise due to some resources. But otherwise, you should be tracking us for most of this series, as we'll be all over it from start to finish.
Shooter and I will go down there and be the resources.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll hold the camera and stuff. I do have a question for you, Stephanie. I think you got to go watch the last Bolts breakdown to get his prediction. But I have a real breaking question for you. As a news guy, do you give thumbs up or thumbs down to Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Oh, thumbs up. Yeah. I mean,
Does
none of us
everyone
fight with
like
tridents,
people love
but
that
yeah,
movie?
you know, I'm not going over, you know, to Kevin O'Donnell and shoving a trident through his chest, but you know, it's a great movie. I certainly love it.
Thank you for answering that, because I've always wondered that if people in the news love that movie as much as I do.
Oh yeah, for sure love it. Yeah, I mean, we're actually way more chummier than people think.
Right on. Well, Evan, you know where to find us after these playoff games. If you got to get something off your chest, jump into the chat, shoot us a message, and jump on. We are going to be live after every single game, but we'll let you know, or we'll let you go for now. Thanks for jumping on for a little lunchtime treat for us.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later. And hold on, if you're out there, we got predictions still of our own. We've got to take a look at our preseason predictions. Thomas, you got to go. Do you have like a soup coming or something?
No. Thank God my boss is part of this super sip club, and I get free drink.
So let's go through some of these predictions that we made at the beginning of the season, shall we? If you
Real
don't,
quick before I forget, because I got a message telling me to please let everybody know. Saturday is the MS walk for at Al Lopez Park. If you want information, I will be posting it on Thunderbolts later, but they will be giving out 2024 lawn playoff signs at the MS walk. So if you come down to Al Lopez Park on Saturday morning, they are going to be giving out the lawn signs.
Yeah. And by the way, for the playoffs, we will toast every time they win a playoff series. That will be back this season, I hope. We didn't get to do that last season. And we will have a sponsor for each show for a giveaway. So I finished my second cup of Monkey Colt coffee finally today. But we've got Monkey Colt in. We've got Cigar City in. We've got 1770 in. Couple surprise ones coming in too. So stay tuned. Watch us in the playoffs after each game, and you got a good chance to win some goodies by hanging out with us after the games.
David, we've mentioned this in different shows because they keep talking about how much Cooch is ahead of everybody else. But we have mentioned it in other shows.
Yeah, Stamkos got up to 40 goals, which should really help contract negotiations.
Yeah.
All right, so predictions at the beginning of the season before the Lightning played their first game, we had Sonia Bryson Kirksey join us, and she was also doing some predictions with us. So we've got a couple different categories here. The first one was rate how we feel about the team going into the season 1 to 10. Sonia only gave the Bolts a 6. Thomas, you gave the Bolts an 8, which was the highest. I gave the Bolts a 7. Would you leave them at an 8 right now going into the playoffs?
Going into the playoffs, yes. The whole season combined, I would say they're about where Sonia predicted on 6.
Yeah, she was kind of spot on there with the roller coaster season. I'm bumping my 7 up to an 8 as we head into the playoffs the way we've been playing lately. Next question was, how many points will Steven Stamkos finish with this season? Last season, he had 84 points. The season before, he had 100 or over 100. Thomas, you went 121.
Yeah.
you really overshot it there. Sonia went 105. I went 91. That was the closest. He had 81 points this season. Still a really good season for a 34-year-old hockey player. Which player on Tuesday night roster, which was opening night, will not be on the roster by the end of the season? Sonia said Tompkins. Technically, he is on the roster right now, but wouldn't blame her at the time for picking that one. Thomas, you said ABB. He's gone. Yep. I said Bogo. He's gone. Hey, sometimes we know what we're talking about. Watch this team and follow them religiously. So there you go. We both nailed that one. This one's a little subjective, but we always ask who will be the Bolts' biggest in-division rival this season. Everybody said Toronto. This is always such a stupid question because I feel like all these teams in the Atlantic are our
Yep.
division rivals, right? We might have to drop that one next season. What place will Lightning finish in the Atlantic Division? I said third. That was wrong. You said second. Tony said second. They finished in fourth. But that does not matter anymore. We're heading to the second season, so it does not matter where we finished. By the way, every year we've won the Cup, we've never finished in first in the division. Let's see. How many points will the Bolts reach this season as a team? I said 92. Sonia said 100. Thomas, you said 102. What did they actually finish at? 98. So somewhere in between of all of us on that one. Sonia was the closest with 100. What game does Vasi return for? Remember, he started the season out 8 to 10 weeks. So we took our guess. Thomas, you said Vegas, December 21st. Sonia said the Blues, December 19th. And I nailed it with the Canes game, November 24th. I knew he wasn't waiting to come back in December. He had to start playing as soon as possible. So nailed that one. Which Bolt will win an award this season and what award? So talking about not nailing one on my end, I said Sergei for Norris. Sergei season did not go as planned, as we all know, with the injuries. Sonia said Cooper for Adams. You said Cooper for Adams. Cooper has crept into the conversation, but is not going to win it. He did, however, win Mr. TNT, which I don't know what the hell that means, but he did win an award from TNT. I think it's a shoe-in that former Lightning coach Rick Tocchet is going to win the Adams at this point.
Yeah, but it's weird that TNT made that joke yesterday. I wonder if that circles around and gets Coop some of those votes and see how close it is, because obviously other people are noticing that he's deserved it and hasn't received it yet. And they made that joke on TNT that you won this before you won the Jack Adams. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets any more closer to Tocchet there.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah.
But someday, Coop. Someday. I think he's fine with winning Stanley Cups for now.
Yeah.
Who leads the Bolts in goals this season and how many? So the correct answer was Point had 46. That leads the team. By the way, Cooch had 44. So Cooch, compared to previous seasons, I don't know if he's ever scored more than that in a season. But Cooch was higher than I thought. I actually picked Cooch to score 45 goals and lead the team. He had 44, so close, but he was not the leader. And then you both had Point. Sonia had him with 62. You had him with 56. He finished with that 46. So right player, wrong amount, but Point had that slow start to the season. Who leads the Bolts in scoring? I said Cooch, and really a slap in the face here with 111, I said, points. He finished with 144. So right player, wrong amount. You both went Stamkos, you and Sonia. Sonia had 105. You had 121. You just were, beginning of the season, you just thought Stamkos was going to hit the fountain of youth.
I did. Well, I thought contract year. So, and that he was pissed off. I thought he was going to really show them.
You were only off by 50 points, so not bad. This is a pretty good one. I think Evan gave us our answer, because this one against is subjective, but Evan mentioned this one earlier. Which bottom six forward or D-man emerges as a key player? Sonia said AC Mont. Not wrong. You said Glendening. Not wrong. Big piece of the team. I said Nick Paul, though. And as Evan mentioned earlier, Nick Paul has really came out of and become a key player on this team. So I don't know. That one's a little subjective, but we'll say I'm the winner because I'm the host. Other than the Lightning, which Eastern conference team will be most dominant. I don't know what we were drinking on this show. I said the New Jersey Devils didn't make the playoffs. Sonia said Buffalo didn't make the playoffs. You said Detroit didn't make the playoffs. This close, though. This close. I thought they were going to sneak in. So, yeah, we were all way off there. And then finally, we ask it every year. Does John Cooper get fired? Hey, the season's not over yet, but I think his job is safe for next season.
Safe for another year.
Any surprises looking back at our preseason predictions there?
No, it's just weird because you didn't really hear many of the names, the Motts, the Glendenning. It was on that one, but I forgot that Bogo was on the opening day roster.
Traded quick.
Yeah, right. ABB, and we didn't have a Chafee. We didn't have a Lilleberg. We didn't have, some of these players were never even discussed or thought of open day roster. We've seen a whole slew of people come through this lineup this year.
Yeah.
And now, it really seems like they're getting set for this. And look, we talk about, and Evan said something about this where, he thinks we have a couple more years left, but the Syracuse Crunch and the Solar Bears both made the playoffs this year. So our farm system is not completely depleted. All those people that yell about we traded away all of our draft picks. We did this, we did that. Syracuse and Orlando both in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest highlights of the season, being able to see some of these younger players come up and, actually stick pretty well. And the Lightning have just done such a good job getting Chafee out of nowhere. And Lilleberg, I didn't know till they talked about it the other night, was drafted by somebody and never got signed. And the Lightning swooped in and signed him, and he's been great. So it kind of restored my faith. I still think there's just a lack of depth as far as just bodies and skaters in our farm system, but what our scouting department is able to do in finding these guys that can fit in. And I guess we got to mention Dylan Duke is signed to become a Bolt, probably be in Syracuse. I don't know will he play in the playoffs in Syracuse?
Yeah, he reported right to Syracuse. And Orozco asked us on our last show if we thought they were going to end up doing it. And I said, I really thought they would going to have to, and that was someone that they were really going to go after. And they did. They signed him as soon as Michigan season ended. They signed him. He was one of the first Michigan people to sign after their season ended. They signed him, and he reported straight to Syracuse.
Yeah. So this dynasty doesn't necessarily have to end when some of our legacy players retire here in the next several years.
Because you got Isaac Howard is going to be coming up too. There's a good possibility Dylan makes the roster next year. A good possibility he makes the roster last year.
Be interesting to see next year which of these guys stick.
Yeah,
you need a couple of them too to do that. Okay. Do you want to go through? Some of this I believe can change on the Western Conference side. So maybe we just go through the East real quick here, because West, there's a couple games tonight. I don't know if all these matchups are set on the West because they still have some games tonight. But let's just go through, starting from the bottom up here on the Eastern Conference side. And if you're in the chat out there still, let us know what you think of some of these playoff series and what you think is going to happen. But the Canes versus Islanders is the least sexiest of the series on the Eastern Conference side. I think there's no doubt in a 7-game series that the Carolina Hurricanes should win this one. And I think they win it in 5 games.
I don't know. I think that might actually end up being a trap series for the Canes. It's going to be interesting, but I think the Islanders have a chance of pulling that off.
Yep, been the hot team to make it into the playoffs. Not even at that last spot. They got that 3rd spot in the Metro. Okay, so we're not agreeing on that one. What about Rangers Caps? I got to go with the favorite, but we do have a president. I don't know if they clinched the President's Trophy yet, but I think the Rangers are the front runners right now.
Yeah, I think the Rangers take that. I don't think it's necessarily a beatdown that I've seen several reporters say, but I think they take that.
I'm going Rangers in 6 on that one.
I'll say
Bruins.
Rangers in 5.
Bruins and Maple Leafs. This one's real simple to me. The Maple Leafs have got to figure out someday. You need a goalie to win the Stanley Cup, and they just still haven't figured that out. They got all the offensive firepower. Their defense is improved. They keep getting a little bit better each season, but I think they're back to not making it out of the first round because Boston's just a way more complete team. And that goaltender is the X factor in this series. So I'm going Boston, but I do think this will go 6 games.
Boston in 6. Yep.
All right. The big one, the Florida Sunshine Showdown. We've talked about it enough.
Bolton 7.
Bolton 7 is what you said? You stole my prediction. I think it's going the distance. I think this is going to be the best series out of the Eastern Conference in this first round. It's going to be the most exciting, and it's going to be fun. So what's going to happen is one team's going to sweep the other since we're all picking it up, and we think it's going 7. But I do think our Bolts are going to come through, and I do feel like whoever can win this series and make it to that second round is going to be in prime position to make the finals, at least the Eastern Conference Finals, right? I don't know what happens when we make the Cup Finals, but it's going to be a battle. So that's your predictions for the Eastern Conference. Again, there's games tonight, so I don't want to dive too much into the West, but we can do that after some of our playoff shows. We do have the first game 12:30 on Sunday. And are you gonna be able to join me after that game? I don't know how this is gonna work out.
Attempt to. It might be from here again.
So, we're gonna work it out to be able to join after every game. We might be on our phones for some of them, but we will do that. We will have giveaways for each game. So good time to tell a friend to tune in, and I might even open up the phone lines if I'm here, which I will be on Sunday. We can't do the phone lines when we're remote doing this, but it's gonna be an exciting playoffs. I'm ready for this second season to start, and I don't know, it's just fun how the hockey really changes. We're gonna see this team play playoff hockey now, and this is what this team's built to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, got anything else, or back to work for everyone?
Back to work for me.
Me too. Sunday. Bolts at Panthers.
Sunday.
Do we know when the home games are going to be yet?
No, they haven't announced it. It sounds like it's going to be Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Give us a follow at We the Thunder Pod. Follow me on Instagram. I post different stuff on both or the different platforms most of the time. We don't post that much to Facebook, so you got to find us in these other spots. So keep that notification ringer on whatever you watch us on, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or X or Instagram. Sorry, we can't see your comments. We did get some comments. Sorelli should be in the mix for Selkie from the Cat Monster. Totally agree with that. So make sure you've got the notification on to know when we go live, so you can see those instant reactions. And, we want to hear from everyone what they thought of the game, win or lose. So strap in that seatbelt, Thomas Scully. Every other day, pretty much, we will be live. And
let me tell you, if you're going to game 3 or game 4, I want to hear the same even louder than we heard the MVP chant last night, because I watched the replay today and could hear it through the TV. We need to get that going through the playoffs. Game 3, game 4. let's rock the house at Emily. Don't sit on your hands. Let's be loud. Let's hear it on that TV. And every time Cooch touches that puck, there should be an MVP chant for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And don't you dare sell your tickets, anyone, to any stinking Florida Panthers fans, or else you're out of the Thunder.
Not if you're getting double the payment.
Right. Kachuk sucks. That's gonna be a tough chant to get going, just because Kachuk name sucks. Kachuk sucks, though. I think that's more of a T-shirt. All right, we're delaying the inevitable. We all got to go back to work.
Yeah.
Until Sunday, this has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.
That's it?